Hi, this is Shayla with Whole Motherhood, and you are listening to Moms Learning with Moms. And some of the best things that I've learned in mothering is always through talking to other moms. I feel like it's one of the best conversations and learning experiences that I get. And so today, with Jill, who's going to talk about homeschooling, you're listening to probably a few conversations that Jill and I have had about homeschooling. It's always been interesting to me, and she just always had a system and had brought all of her children through on homeschooling. Is that right?
They actually all had a different journey. So
Okay,
I can lay that out for you if you want me to.
cool. No, that'll be perfect. So yeah, Jill, let's just start with your family and tell us a little bit about you, and then go into why you started homeschooling.
Okay. Well, I'm a mom of four children. My youngest is just about to graduate from high school. So I'm kind of through the journey of schooling my children, which is a really weird feeling. My children are now ages 30, 28, 25, and then my youngest is 18. So the older three are now graduated from college and have gone on with their professions. And it was really my oldest son when he was in fourth grade that kind of directed me to thinking about homeschooling. I had some friends who were homeschooling successfully and had some really strong feelings about why they homeschooled, but it was more about their family life, their faith, protecting their children from certain things in the world and things of that nature, which are all very good and valid reasons to homeschool. But those were not reasons why I ever really thought about homeschooling. But at this time, my oldest son was struggling with just a lot of frustration. He was bored during the school day. He was really developing some anxiety and depression. Um, and I wasn't really sure of the source, but I knew that the frustration he felt through his school day was not normal. And I wanted to relieve him of that as if I could. And it and so we talked about it, and he decided that he would like to finish out his elementary school years and maybe consider homeschooling after that. Well, that terrified me, knowing we'd be looking at middle school and high school, along with the fact that he was a very bright young man. So I started doing research, went to the library, read a lot of books, and instantly knew that it was the right thing for him. And with that, I gave my other children the option, and everyone jumped on board. So I went into that year with a first grader, a fourth grader, and a sixth grader. And my reasons purely were to support that older child who just needed a little more rigor, a little more opportunity to explore his interest, and maybe a break from the structure and pressure he was putting on himself from public school. So that's kind of how it all began.
You've talked about how you really didn't have a curriculum, though.
What did I do?
What did you
Yeah,
do in
I
place of a curriculum? Yeah.
in place of a curriculum, there have so this was 2003. So luckily I came into homeschooling after many pioneers before me who had kind of paved the way to make it okay and not such a scary thing to do or an obscure thing to do. But and there were really good curriculums out there, curriculum companies that we had access to. But I'll be honest, I didn't want a canned curriculum. I wanted to be able to kind of meet my kids where they were and follow their interests. And I also really couldn't afford one for three different kids, three different curriculums, and I didn't really want to spend the money on it. So I actually accessed our state's standards, grade level standards. I should add, I am currently a licensed school teacher, and I can't even think of what I'm trying to call them right now. But our Department of Education, I went to our Department of Education website and looked up our state standards for all subjects and the grade levels I needed, and looked at what my kids needed to learn that year or would be exposed to in school that year. And I just kind of hand created things. It really wasn't rocket science at those grade levels. Um, and for math, I did buy textbooks, used textbooks online. It was math I could teach them, so I didn't really need videos or support with that. Um, Fast forward to today, there's so many YouTube videos, Khan Academy, so many great things out there that you could really supplement your homeschool with, a lot of things that are available for free. So that's where I started, and I just kind of worked with that. And if I went through a state standard and the kid already knew it, I skipped it and moved on.
What are some things that your son was interested in as he got kind of older? What were the things that interested him?
Well, unfortunately for me, he was very interested in math and science. He wanted to be a doctor, and those were not my strong suits. And I had to dig into outside resources to support that as we got into high school. We found many great partnerships in our community that we could use to supplement what I could provide for my children. They all three of the boys, they're all boys, all three of those older children. Were able to start community college here locally. Two of them were only sophomores when they started. That sounds really weird, I know, but they were driving. It was nearby home. It wasn't, they didn't feel out of place. They were all ages. And I loved it because they were able to socialize with such a variety of people and gain experience that way. It was a fabulous experience for them. And they had such a foot in the door with college before they went on campus to university to pursue their degree.
Your oldest actually became a doctor, isn't that right?
Yes, he is currently in residency
Mm.
for general surgery. Yep.
So do you feel like he was prepared as much as he could be? Was he over prepared? Was he under prepared? Like,
It was really interesting because after 2 years at his community college, he'd really taken everything he could possibly take. I think he had 51 credit hours, and he was 18 year. He was 18, but if he had been in public school, would have only been going into his senior year. So we went ahead and just graduated him early. I was the writer of his transcript, which I should say I live in Indiana. There are different laws in every state, which you need to be aware of if you are looking in homeschooling. We have very flexible laws here, which made it easier. But I was, registered as a school in Indiana, made his transcript, and we applied for a local university that he would transfer into that year. And the point to tell you all of this is we went to our orientation for the school he was going to, and the president of the university came up to greet us, and we were talking to another family that was from our community, and we actually knew them. And the president of the university asked them where they attended school, and the friend said where she had attended school, and my son said, "Oh, I was homeschooled." And the president said, "Well, are you ready for the rigors of college? Do you think you're ready for the rigors of college?" And I just remember biting my tongue thinking, he already has 51 credit hours. Yes, he's ready for the rigors of college. But there's such a misunderstanding, I think, sometimes of what's going on in a homeschooling home. And he was absolutely ready. Homeschooling leads to just natural curiosity, independent learning, and a sense of, knowing how to organize yourself and be responsible for your learning. And he has done very well, obviously has done very well in college. So something really interesting we found with probably one of my biggest learning curves in preparing my children for college, outside of the academics and character and organization of all of that, was just the know-how to apply and to write that transcript. Nowadays, with our computer programs, it's as simple as creating a Word document with an organized transcript, just like what you might see from a local school. And with my oldest son's first university, I overdid it. I had way too much detail in there, and they had to call and have some clarification of what some of these courses were. You can really just give them names: algebra 1, geometry 1, whatever they are. But the thing I learned is that when your children, if they are to do dual credit classes and earn college credits early, they would still apply to college as a freshman. And that was a little confusing for us and created a really big application nightmare for one of my children, who had applied as a transfer student because the college had told him to, not understanding. So if someone has earned all of their college credits that they have as a high school student, they will still apply to college as a freshman.
hmm.
That's actually really a good thing, but it is nice to know because it affects the timing of when you apply. The good thing about that is it still keeps your student eligible for all of those freshman scholarships, academic scholarships, and things like that. So it really is a benefit. And those credits still can transfer in and are still part of their academic record. And they may still graduate in 2 years, but they apply as a freshman, and then that changes over once they complete their first year of college. So good to know as you're applying, so you don't wait and apply as a transfer and realize you're way too late because all of those early admits have
Hmm.
already applied and the school is full for the year and all that good stuff. So apply as a freshman and apply early so you can get all those good scholarships.
Did your boys get scholarships when they were applying?
Yes, but I will make a comparison there. My daughter, who's graduating this year, has attended high school, all 4 years of high school. And I think because she really hasn't done anything more than my boys did. In fact, she's probably done a little less. She does have some dual credits, and but she's been able to be a National Honor Society and things like that that didn't really exist for homeschool. There may be some more things like that now,
Hmm.
but at the time there weren't things like that. She has been offered more scholarships and more opportunities. And I think that is a result of being in a public high school. I hate to say that, but I really do think it is. Um, but the boys did still receive good opportunities for sure. And were accepted. They were all accepted to their first choice school.
So you were mentioning that all three of your boys had different journeys. Your second son, what was
Oh,
his
okay.
journey kind of like?
Yeah. So well, the oldest did start homeschooling going into sixth grade and homeschooled through high school. But then, like I said, by his sophomore year, he was pretty much going to community college full time, with supplemental things that I wanted to be a part of his education. My second son was going into fourth grade, and he was homeschooled. He was pretty much homeschooled all the way through then, but he was homeschooled until his freshman year, where he then tried a charter school that was a hybrid school at the time. The state of Indiana did not have virtual, had not approved virtual schooling or, yeah, virtual schooling. But there was a hybrid school where they went to school part-time, they were home part-time. And he did that for a semester, but then promptly returned to homeschool and until his sophomore year, and then began community college. My third son actually entered that hybrid school as a sixth grader. He started homeschooling in first grade. So he had kindergarten in the public school, homeschooled K through 5, was in the hybrid school 6 through 10. So he had middle school and high school in the hybrid school, 2 days a week at school, 3 days a week at home. And then junior, senior year was community college and working and all the things I'd done with my previous children. My youngest had gone to our community kindergarten, did the hybrid school for 2 years, went to our local elementary school from third through sixth, homeschooled 7th through 8th, and then returned to high school. So she had a little bit of all of it.
Wow.
Based on personal needs, we really reevaluated every year based on the needs of the child.
So I know that they all had their own experience. Do you think one had a better experience than the other on how they did everything?
It's interesting how, we know every child is different and learns differently, has different preferences, everything. Every one of my children experienced homeschool a little bit differently. It was really fun having the three boys a little more close together in age. They had so many shared experiences. They had really good friends who also homeschooled. And so the memories are just huge. The memories they have are huge. They played sports. They played very competitive football and basketball. And they were on golf teams. And I don't know, I can't even think of everything they did. Robotics. We did all of the things that a kid might want to do. If there was something my kids wanted, I usually figured out how to make it happen. Choir. We had music things. They had music lessons. So I don't think there was any avenue of all the special extracurricular things that we missed. As a parent, it was exhausting and sometimes costly. I actually worked part-time to help fund all of those things, but I never really regretted it. I had so much time with my children through the day that it just all balanced out and worked really well. But it's interesting about their experience. My oldest one is probably the least favorable to his homeschooling experience, like just feeling he doesn't really have anything bad to say about it, but I wouldn't say he celebrates it either. I think some of that is the timing of when we started. He was 12 years old. My younger two boys think it was the greatest thing ever. My youngest son will tell you that he thought schooling was going to Pizza Hut for the book it reward that he got for reading books and going to our friends to swim because schooling didn't take our whole day. And so we had so much fun as a family and spending time with grandma and grandpa and doing service that we did in the community and just having fun and living life together and having experiences um, while still having a quality education. And I think that's one of the things I value most. And I will say my daughter mostly begged me to homeschool her all of the time. But our family was in a different stage. There's an age gap there, and it really wasn't what was best for her
Hmm.
most of the time. So we did not choose that for her. And I honestly, now that she's graduating, look back and sometimes regret it that
Hmm.
we didn't. But at the time, it felt like we were making the right choice.
Part of one of the conversations that we've had, we talked about you kind of focused on different categories in their education. Tell us what that was like.
So, Shayla, is this where I kind of looked at how I broke up our time?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
what I mean.
So, that year before we started homeschooling, where I was doing research and reading a lot of books, I feel bad that I can't give credit to her name is right on the tip of my brain right now, but she was one of the pioneers of homeschooling, like back in the early 80s when you really kind of had to fight for the right to do so. But she really had a formula of a third of schooling. Like if you looked at a day, you would have a third of schooling, a third of community service, and a third of family service. And for some reason, that really resonated with me as I thought about it. I knew my kids were not going to need 8 hours a day of schooling. And I was wondering, what are we going to do with our time? What is this going to look like in our home? And so I very loosely adopted that. And it turned out to be a great blessing, really, because the year I started homeschooling, I was pregnant with our youngest daughter, which I had not planned on. And she was very sick after she was born. And so I honestly don't know how much schooling my kids really even got that year, but they were able to provide a lot of service and they were learning through that. Like, I don't really feel like we missed a beat because we were doing all the other things too. We were doing the best we could. But through that experience, they were well rounded. They were like, I have boys who cook better than me. Those were all parts of their curriculum. It wasn't scheduled as schooling, but they just had a very well-rounded lifestyle because of that. And the community service, they had so many meaningful projects, whether it was through their Eagle Scout project that they did when they were a little bit older, or we volunteered for the Ronald McDonald House for a long time because we
Hmm.
we had spent so much time at Riley Children's Hospital that was just kind of a place our heart went to, and several other things. We just had several opportunities to serve. I know they served my parents a lot as they were aging and needed help with the lawn and things like that. So there was lots of opportunities they would not have
Hmm.
had they been so invested in their public school, especially during high school.
I just love that division of time. It just seems too, it's not balanced. It's so much time that you give to the school system with school and then extracurricular if you want to do anything else after.
And I remember, and I was that kid. I was that kid who got up at, had swim practice starting at 6 a.m., had school all day, and then had swim practice again, and then show choir rehearsal that evening
Mm.
or musical rehearsal, whatever it was. I was gone from pretty much 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. When did I see my family? This actually gives me chills. When did I see my family? When did I have the leadership and influence of my parents? When did I participate in my church activities? What were my priorities? And I can really look back on those years of life and say that it was school. It was the teachers. It was my friends at school. Luckily, I had great friends and great teachers, but there was an imbalance for sure. Not that those things aren't all great. They were, and they influenced a lot of who I am today. But I needed more of a balance. And I have been so grateful that our family had that. I
Mm.
never really knew going into homeschooling that would be like my favorite thing ever, probably. That my husband, who was incredibly busy during those years with different, not only with work, but with service that he did and things of that nature, we had a flexible schedule. So they were able to meet dad where he was. They could spend time with dad when he had time to spend with them. He could interact in their activities. We could create, their school activities to be when dad could be a part of them rather than dad just never being a part of them. So it afforded our family flexibility that we would not have been able to have otherwise, that I believe strengthened our family. And I think has been a blessing to my children. I know it's been a blessing to me as a mom. Oh, well, and if you don't mind, I'd like to add one more advantage.
Yeah, please do.
Now that my children are older, I can honestly say that they are each other's best friends. And I don't know that they have other friends too, and they have good relationships. And the two older boys are married. They have children. My younger one's getting married this summer. They've had good, healthy relationships, but they are each other's best friends. They enjoy being with one another. They support one another. They'll tell each other the truth when they need to hear it, And I didn't realize that as a young mom, how important that was to me. But I think as I'm growing older, it's probably one of the things I value most about my children is their relationship with one another. And they may have still been that close. I don't know. But I sometimes feel it's a result of all the shared experiences we had schooling together. And I do really value that. As far as disadvantages, I've been thinking about it. My laundry was never folded and put away, ever, ever. It just always moved from basket to basket onto someone's body again. And
just so
oh gosh,
busy. Is that what you're saying, Jill? Is it was just so busy?
yeah, it was truly an act of love and sacrifice as a mom. And I would say for my husband too. He wasn't actively engaged in the schooling. Occasionally we pick a subject and have him kind of take the lead on it, more for fun than anything. But he supported us and he supported me wholeheartedly. And when we needed to have a principal moment, dad was the principal. When we needed to have a behavior moment or whatever, dad would jump in. Thankfully that didn't happen often, but I think disadvantages, I've actually been thinking about that as I've been preparing to talk with you tonight. And I feel when I look at disadvantages, I feel like they're all just personal things,
Hmm.
or maybe I didn't have time to do things I might have done, or to serve in ways I might have wanted to serve, or I don't know, to keep my house the way I wanted to keep it. I don't know. I don't know what they were. As far as my kids, I'm not really sure there was one. Yeah. And I've really thought about it a lot. I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. And I could have never predicted that. I always worried that I would. I think I went into it with blind faith, knowing I was trying to do the best for my kids. I prayed a lot along the way. Very often people will ask me, well, how did you know how to do this? Or how did you know how to do that? And most of the time I'll have to say it was an answer to prayer, because I didn't know. I didn't have a book telling me what to do. I did research when I needed to, but I prayed a lot. I do always say that I know it's not for everyone. And as I said earlier, I am a licensed public school teacher. I was not at the time. It's something I've done since, as I've now gone back to school and finished what I wanted to do when I was younger. But I look at kids in our school, and a lot of them I know are really in the best place they can be, having support from a lot of trained professionals where they don't live in a home where that support can be given. And there is certainly so much good from public education. So I don't want anyone to ever take away from anything I'm saying that it's not. But I know for our family and our circumstances at that time in our life, it was a really good fit for us and a blessing for our family.
What kind of advice do you think you'd give someone who wants to start homeschooling?
I think if you're exploring that avenue, talk to people you know who have experience and have done it, and just take all of that information in and sift through it. Don't take any of it as the way it has to be. I have wonderful friends who homeschooled, who very much ran their home like a school, who had a great success. I was very eclectic, and we did it different every year. We used different curriculums for every kid, or different paths, just depending on what I was really just putting a puzzle together every year, and trying new things. So there's so many different avenues. There are so many virtual schools available to access, that if you sometimes for health reasons or different things, or training for a sport, or, there's so many reasons why you might need to pull from a public school system. There are so many ways to access school through another vendor or a system that you can still have at home. There's so many ways to gain your education.
Mm.
And so I think if you're exploring an alternative to education, whether it be homeschooling with mom leading the schooling, um, doing school at home with support from another vendor, there are hybrid situations like we used for some of our children where you're at school some of the day, or whether it's partnering with your local school district, to take a couple of classes, but then do some of your classes independently. I know some school districts will do that to determine what your goals are,
Mm.
why you're interested in it, and what you hope to accomplish by looking for an alternative solution, and build your plan from that. Determine what your purpose is and build your plan from that.
What kind of advice do you have for people that really don't, I don't know, don't feel like they can homeschool, but really need some help educating their children a little bit better, more personalized help for their children?
Yeah, so I have a few thoughts, some just from my public school teaching experience, and just some from personal experiences. But the first thoughts that come to mind, that's actually a really great question. The first thing I would say is, if you've considered homeschooling, but feel like you're in a position that you can't, or that you just don't think you can do it, like maybe you're not capable of doing it, like your personal abilities, I would ask you to reconsider that. I was very much that person for 4 years before I started homeschooling, who kind of thought it was a good idea. I remember the first week of first grade for my oldest son, who was reading, you know, like Harry Potter independently in first grade. Okay. He was a good reader. I didn't know that that was not normal. He was my oldest child. And I walked into school to take some donations, and they were learning about the color of the day and eating green popsicles and all the things that were green. And that's great. That's developmentally appropriate. Um, but I think that was my first clue, like, wait a minute, this is not what my kid needs. This is something he's bored to tears with. So if you're feeling like you have a real need or a real desire, and do some research, and trust yourself, trust your motherly instinct. You really do know your children better than anyone, and you're not going to do anything to hurt them. But there are many, many reasons why your children may need extra support throughout their education, and many, many reasons why you may not choose to homeschool or may not be able to homeschool. And I think there are a lot of resources for help. I would encourage you to become an advocate for your child, and um, build good relationships with your school, whether it's doing what you can to volunteer through the PTO or whatever is available, but also just staying in good communication with your teachers, especially at the elementary level. It's a little bit harder when they get into high school, um, but know how to access their grades and how to see if they're on top of what they're doing. So don't be shy to know your students' login information, if they're at an older grade level. If it's Google Classroom, know how to log in where you can look and see if they're getting their work done. Or if you need to sign up on email to get those reminders sent to you, do it. Stay on top of it. These kids do not have the executive functioning to manage it all themselves. And so I don't want you to be that. I wouldn't recommend that you take over for them, but be aware so that you can intervene before it's too late and be a support to them. In high school, um, I think these are the hardest times to know how to be connected. I think it's easier in elementary. Know who their guidance counselors are. Don't be shy about emailing if something doesn't seem right. So be an advocate for your children. Be in the know of their success. Are they getting the work done in time? Where are they struggling? If they're struggling, what tool do they need to overcome that hurdle and
Hmm.
be more successful? If you have a student with a special need, either a learning disability, an emotional disability, just some learning gaps, which are very real right now with the pandemic, don't hesitate to seek tutoring. And tutoring does not have to be expensive. I had one of my kids in high school tutored younger kids who needed help, for free, for a service. That same student also also tutored an older man who was working on his GED. So reach out to your friends and family members to help if you have someone who needs help, and you feel like you can't give it to them. Just and they're good friendships and good partnerships that are built, mentorships. Most universities offer free tutoring.
Hmm.
You can access this. Their students offer it. Most bigger universities. There are mentoring programs as well, and they offer free tutoring, usually for middle school and high school students who might need some extra support. So look for those things in your community. And honestly, for your another thing, this I'm not going in any order. I'm talking about all different ages, but your younger children really just need time to play, and to work. So when I say play, I don't mean video games, but I do mean board games or just outside playing, old school playing. They really need that time to free up their mind and their energy so that they can focus and do well during the school day. Definitely give your children time to decompress, release energy, um, develop those characters, those strong character skills, because those are the things that actually help them be a better student when they're at school.
So when you say they need work, what kind of work are you talking about? Are you talking about like maybe as simple as a chore, like chores
Yes.
at home?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't be shy to ask them to go sweep your car or take out the trash or whatever the chores look like in your home. I know, Shayla, at your house, it could be a number of things with your beautiful orchard and everything you have going on. Kids, I have found enjoyment in meaningful work. They find purpose in it and it empowers them. And having a good work ethic results in being a better student. So give them good work opportunities at home, reward them for it, not monetarily, but praise them for it. Let them have those natural incentives for a job well done. In high school, a lot of students or teachers will offer office hours to support students who may need help with a project or an assignment. They simply have to ask, just like you would in college. Um, and if a teacher says no, a teacher says no, but it never hurts to ask. But if those things are offered, I highly encourage the students to take advantage of them because it
Mm,
shows their motivation,
mm,
and builds that relationship with the teacher. And even if they're just sitting there doing their homework, then if they have a question, the teacher's right there, they can raise their hand and ask. So take advantage of those if they're offered. And if they're not and your student needs them, ask them to ask, have them ask, could we meet before school one day? Could we meet after school one day? I need help with this thing. Elementary, many teachers will offer tutoring. Like if you really have kids struggling with something and you're not sure what resources you have, many teachers will offer tutoring at a pretty paid resource. I would start with the teacher right within your school because they know your school curriculum and they know the same language and procedures your child's learning for math or whatever.
mm.
But since I'm a special education teacher, I will address like that for a minute because I think so often things that could be addressed and supported through special education in a school is overlooked because either there's a stigma and we don't want to go down that road, or it's just overlooked. Our kids struggling and we don't know why. So
Mm.
don't hesitate to ask for an evaluation if your kid is struggling. If you have a kid that's working hard and there's a struggle, ask for help through the school psychologist or school counselor. Um, and there are a couple ways students can receive accommodations. One is through a 504 plan, which is not special education, it's general education, but through different diagnoses, I'm not sure the correct word there, whether it be medical or it can sometimes be an anxiety disorder, something of that nature. ADHD is a common one. They can receive accommodations that really protect them and support them in their education, such as receiving extra time on assignments
Mm.
or extra time on a test or additional breaks or whatever it is they need to make it through the school day successfully. And then if the need is affecting their education and they need a specialized plan, then there are all kinds of eligibilities then for that IEP through the
Mm.
special education plan. And I will just say, as a special education teacher, I have found more often than not, that my special education children are having more success accessing the school curriculum sometimes than our general education students
Oh,
because of the
wow.
support and the tools they have given to them.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because it's just a barrier. And so I think for any student having a barrier, you have to find out what the barrier is and figure out what they need to get over it.
All right. Well, thanks, Jill. Thanks for talking to us about this. I love all that you know about this, and I really don't even feel like I've got quite the grasp of still all you did and all you to get all those boys through and have them graduated, and it's just amazing to me. And they're all actually really capable and successful, and anyway, it's neat. Really neat.
Thank
So
you.
we're just gonna
It's something I love.
I love it. The purpose of this channel is to show experiences and to be educated in different areas and we all can learn from. And so we're going to just encourage everyone to just keep learning.